everyone, Zelrant here. Today we learned that Yoohee is the next unit coming out for Girls Frontline 2. She is the core support for the physical team, and if you want to invest in physical, she's the unit for that. And overall, a great unit. Now, I've already covered her in a past video. I'm going to put a link to that in the description if you want to see like her kit in entirety. But right now, I kind of want to talk a little bit. We'll kind of jump around in her kit. So if you want to actually watch that first to get the gist of her entire kit, you can go to that in the description and then come back to this video. Because I'm not going to just go over everything again because I've already done this in the past. I'd rather kind of just look at her now in terms of the whole scope based on like the knowledge we now have on the physical team, especially with Lainey having come out on the CN side. And so we're kind of seeing where her skills are coming into play and becoming very important. Because right now we know now physical is all about that defense thread. So while they don't have an element, which is their inherent weakness, they just destroy physical defense on the units. Especially with Lainey, if you heavily invest in her, can get like 400+% defense reduction. And then Yoohee's the core member that can really let you take advantage of it. And a lot of it comes down to the one skill here, which is anti-defense damage boost. When dealing physical damage, if the target's defense reduction exceeds 100%, which once you start getting the entire physical team together, that's going to be fairly easy, especially when we eventually get Lainey. For each additional percentage of defense reduction increases damage dealt by a certain percentage. This is considered as a buff and cannot be dispelled. The percentage is as follows. Additional defense reduction is less than 100%, 0.5%. And then you can kind of see the rest of them here all the way up to 300. It's another 1.5% of that. And so it can be quite significant as you really start stacking on that defense reduction. And she just makes it where they're doing even better. Now, one of the big things you're going to see and hear about Yoohee is you absolutely need her V1. And that is going to be pretty true. If you're wanting to build the physical team, you're going to want her V1. Now, right now, in my opinion, like, she's not worth the pull. And I'll have a separate video on should you pull as we get closer to her banner actually coming out. But I feel like she is a skip for now for Morse. Or, in my case, like what I plan to do is just get one copy of her. She is, as a lot, you'll hear a lot of people say she's the dorm meta, if you've seen her skin and some of that. And so if you're one of those people, she's definitely a very good pickup for that. And if you're a collector and you're trying to get everybody like I am. And my plan will be, since I'm not really going to be using physical at this point, I've got Burn up and running. I got my Clukai. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I've got my Ice team that's kind of carrying me right now while I wait for Springfield to get Hydro really coming online. And so Yoohee may not get too much use. And so I'm going to just get her V0 and I'll build her. But I'll be waiting for her rerun when we have more information for CN to know how much I may want to invest in her. But the big thing is if you're wanting to use her right now and build your physical team right now, which you can, you will want to try and get her V1 if possible. That's the big thing is if you look what it does, Stability Assault 2 is applied instead of a Stability Assault 1. So right there, automatically you're doing more stability damage with her buff that she applies on her Shining Finale skill here, which is, where is it? Yeah, her ultimate here. So that's where she puts, gains troops core for 3 turns, applies that Stability Assault to 2 allies, and then after skill uses, gains extra command. So just a little buff to that, but then when you look at the rest of it here, additionally applies attack up for all allies, more damage. So that's just another buff that it adds on top of it. But then you have the big one here. After skill use, if Graceful Spin or Resonant Passion is used on this turns, the effects are applied to all allies. And that's the big thing. These buffs are really nice, but they're one unit when you read it. For 3, you have Inner Passive. After using, where is it? Yeah, after using basic attacks or skills, Graceful Spin or Resonant Passion can be used, and this effect cannot be retriggered repeatedly. And then when you look at them, selects an ally, excluding self, within 8 tiles, and applies Graceful Dance Steps and Anti-Defense Damage Boost for 3 turns. It's to a single ally on that. One of the big things that it has in there is like healing, and actually, I'll do it here. So you have HP recovery here, 200% of the attack, or you can get Shelter, depending on which buff you pick. You can pick one or the other. And so that actually can make her a really good sustain on your side, especially since we don't need heavy sustain in like Gunsmoke Frontline. Makes her where you probably could utilize her as just your pure sustain there. And now you're getting all those buffs on everybody, which includes that crit damage. And so that one is very big for her. And that's why you're going to hear a lot of people say you're going to want to get her V1. Nice big buff there. Now, if you're wanting to heavily invest in her, like she's your favorite character, maybe you don't care about Springfield because she competes with Springfield in that support role if you're going to want to heavily invest in one. And Springfield is overall better if you're wanting to invest, but Yoohee is also really good. And it doesn't. She starts to really pick up just like Springfield at V3 and then even more at V6. So her V3 is gains 1 stack of Yielding Spirit. And then new effect is added for Troops Core, which you saw as part of her ultimate. When attacking, ignores 50% of the enemy's defense, so more defense ignore. After a triggering the effects of Best Dancer, immediately activates Improvised Dance on the enemy with the highest current HP and range. So bossing is going to be really big on that. This effect can only trigger once per round, and Graceful Spin and Resonant Passion cannot be used after skills use. For every 2 times Best Dancer trigger, reduces the skill's cooldown by 1 turn. So this is basically her another big ultimate upgrade to her ultimate, and she starts getting into the point where she's doing enough to benefit outside physical there. And then you have all the other little stuff that you're getting added in here with like our V2. You have new effect for Graceful Spin. HP is 15% max HP when that's done. Cleanses 1 debuff. So you're getting more of that healing on your V2. And then you have defense down on the enemy with the highest initial defense for 3 turns. So getting all the way to V3. V2 is pretty nice there as well. And then when you get to her V4, increases damage multiplier by 60%. Nothing too crazy here. 1 stacks of Winsable Thoughts. And then your V5 increases damage multiplier by 50% for that skill. Increases the effective range by 1 tile. Single target defense 2 is applied instead of single target defense 1. So another way to get target defense 2 instead of 1. So it's just like an increase. Let me see what it actually is here. I can't remember off the top of my head. Yes. Decreases the damage received from the single target attacks by 10%. Okay, so that one's not too crazy because that one's a defensive buff, but it is nice, and that just makes it where it basically increases the amount it's defending for. And this cleanses Taunt, Fear, Stun, and Infatuated for allies as well, so that's really nice. But the big one overall is going to be V6 if you're wanting to go all in on her, and that's double the effects of Dance Steps of Self. So increases crit damage for 20%, recovers HP equivalent to 40% attack, gains 3 stacks of Shelter. For each buff applies to other allies, increases attack by 1.5% on self, up to a maximum of 45% when triggering Best Dancer applies Stage Warm-Up for all allies for 2 turns. And that one is Stage Warm-Up. When dealing physical damage, increases crit damage by 25%. This is considered a buff and cannot be dispelled. And then you have all the stuff that she can remove. And then Whimsical Thoughts. That was the other buff that's applied to her on the next round. Improvised Dance increases crit by 15% and ignores 10% of the target's defense. This effect can be stacked up to 3 times and cannot be dispelled. So a nice little buff there. As you can see, you're really starting to rack up the defense down as you go into her dupes there. And that's the whole thing with physical overall. And she actually does a lot of damage herself. Just kind of like Springfield. Springfield starts out as just like a support at her V1, and then V3 and V6 amps up not only her support, but her own personal damage. And Yoohee is kind of the same way. Many of the videos that I've seen kind of showcasing her have shown, I think, mostly V3s. And I think I've seen V6s as well. And it is pretty significant in the difference. And I will say when it comes to her weapon as well, when her weapon comes out, I do really like her weapon. This one is, so you have kind of just a default trait here. If the unit has full HP at the end of action, they gained a random buff. So that's really nice right there. It's pretty easy to maintain full health on certain units. Then you have, but in her skill here, when allies deal physical damage using active attack, ignore 10% of the enemy's defense For each buff applies to allies excluding self, increases the amount of enemy defense ignore when dealing physical damage by 4% for self, up to a maximum of 20% at 1, and then all the way up to 40 if you have 5 dupes. The big thing I think is, like, even though you have specific elements, like most, I say it's most cases, a lot of them have physical in their kit still. And so I can see this having a more wide use. Now, how wide of a use, I don't know. But I do really like this one as it's kind of supportive in nature. And overall, if it's a unit that is doing a lot of physical, like I think this one, if you wanted to go physical team with a QJ carry, I think this gun, just kind of looking at it, looks pretty good on her, as well as on Yoohee. I mean, it's Yoohee's ultimate best one for it. But I feel like it can have a very general use if you just wanted a more general use AR. It's kind of where I'm getting at with that. But it's nothing too. I mean, weapons aren't mandatory, so I wouldn't. It's not at Vector's level either. I think Vector's is probably the best supportive gun in the game. I mean, hers is an SMG, but I still think it's a rather good one overall. But as you can see with her kit, the big thing with Yoohee is it is all about defense reduction, and we've seen it with Lainey, and Lainey really wanting that. You basically, if you're wanting Lainey in the future, you want Yoohee. Lainey is not going to be good without a Yoohee. So now is the time that you can kind of make that decision, or like some people may want to do, since we don't know who's coming after Yoohee or what they might do for half anniversary. You may just skip her for now and pick her up on a rerun. We know her reruns in 4 banners, and so if I plan to heavily invest in her, that's when I'll be doing it. I'm just going to be getting 1 copy of her this time. But overall, she's a great character in the game. It's just right now, I think physical team, we don't have all the details, so it is kind of just a waiting game on the next big unit, because there's one more unit coming out from what we've heard from the developers that is going to be the hyper carry. So we'll just kind of have to see there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now. I'll do another video as we get closer on I've already kind of mentioned a little bit here, but my should you pull right before she actually comes out. But that'll be it for now. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.